Welcome to episode 2 of Mountain Bike Life. We're about to take a trip down to Maribor for the first IXS Cup and the first World Cup of the 2019 race season. So I'm back from round 1 of the UK Downhill Series and it's pretty manic. We've got 2 days to get everything turned around and head down to Maribor. Got an IXS Cup down there and then the World Cup the week after. So I've just spent a bit of time prepping the downhill bike, making sure it's right. And I'm now going to try and fit some training in before we leave tomorrow. I bought the watt bike at the end of last season because the weather here can just be so miserable. I end up not doing an awful lot of riding over the winter and can sometimes lose fitness. So the intensity of the training I can do on this thing is just unreal. My numbers have increased massively, so I'm so glad I bought it. It's been absolutely mint having it in the gym. I definitely don't just sit on the watt bike though. My training is really varied. I work with a number of different people who give me advice, and it's really cool to just mix things up and do loads of different stuff. I try and make sure that my training program is always evolving. There's nothing worse than training and just getting bored because you're doing the same things all the time. So one thing I try to really focus on is make sure that throughout the week I'm exercising all of my muscle groups and doing a large variety of exercises. Personally, I feel that for mountain biking, especially downhill, you need to be really strong to be able to hang on to the bike at speed when you're pushing it. Because of that, I fill my program with a mix of dynamic exercises and then also exercises that are just aimed at increasing general strength, like your standard bench press and squats, things like that. I never used to do any stretching, but now I really value it. If I don't do it after the gym, then I feel awful the day after, so even though it's pretty boring, I try and just run through the same routine every time. It's worth it in the end because then I don't get all bound up and tight after a session and I can move the next day. So that's the gym session wrapped up. It's now time to nip out and do a bit of work. For anyone who doesn't know, as well as racing mountain bikes, I'm also an optometrist. I'm really lucky. I work here at 2020 Saddleworth, which is in the next village over from where I live. I've worked here since I qualified and it's a lovely little practice. The owner's really flexible with me and lets me coordinate my racing around my work. That is quite tricky because I am so busy with my racing and my training and running One Vision. So in the winter when I'm home, I usually do 2 clinic days a week. And then in the summer, when I'm here, which is quite rare, I usually just work on a Wednesday. Well, it's been a very stressful, but everything's now out of the workshop and we're ready to go. Up until about 5 years ago, I used to go to all the World Cups in the van with my dad. But then when we started the team and we had other riders, my dad used to take the van with all the gear in for all of us and we'd fly out. Now we've converted the race van, it makes sense for me to go out with dad and we can share the driving. I can get some bits done on the way. My dad's pretty strict when it comes to keeping the van moving though, so you've got to pretty much do everything while the van's rolling down the road, whether that's building a wheel or making lunch. We left home at 4 PM on Wednesday and arrived in Maribor at 4 PM the next day, nicely in time to set up the pits, build my downhill bike and go for a nice evening spin on the trail bike to loosen off. After a long journey it was nice to just relax and go for a pedal, ready for practice in the morning and the start of the IXS Cup. So this is my downhill bike for 2019, Commencal Supreme DH 29, large frame, running SR Suntour suspension front and back, the Rux fork up front, custom tuned cartridge, 200 mils of travel, and then the SR Suntour Tri-Air on the back, again custom tuned with 200 mils of rear travel, running gusset components group set, Halo wheels. Halo are making a new downhill wheel called the Gravitas, Schwalbe tyres, running the Magic Mary at the moment. If it rains, I'll switch out to the Dirty Dan. Frank Brothers Mallet DH pedals, Works Components headset in the frame to give me a little bit of extra reach. Custom etching on the top cap and custom etching on the chainring from Works Components, which is a really nice touch. So we're just heading up for a track walk. Had an hour-long queue for sign-on, which was a bit of a pain, but we've done that now. So going up and see what it's looking like. So I've got myself a bit of baggage. Old Keiran Davies, he's come for a wander down the track with me. Says he's got some killer lines to show me, so we're going to see what's going on. So Maribor's a pretty special location for me. Exactly 10 years ago I came here in 2010 for my first ever World Cup, and then we've not been back to race a World Cup here since, so it's really cool to come back now and do the IXS Cup and the World Cup back to back as my 10-year anniversary of racing World Cups.
Chriseł, troszkę zostawiałeś tylko na początku przy pierwszych skokach.
What he said, there's a big old gap here. Kieran's not stopped talking about it, there he is. Not volunteering to guinea pig, that's for sure. Hell of a case. So it's been a sweet first day of practice. 5 runs, it was quite busy, there's 450 riders here, so a bit of queuing at the bottom, but Feel good on the track, really enjoying it. Just gonna wander up the track now and have a look at a few bits on the bottom section. Really want to kind of see where to go, be precise. Feel good at the top, gonna leave that. So this is a section I've been struggling to feel that I've got flow through all day. And I think that's because sometimes when I've been going quicker, I've been on this main line. I'm gonna try, make an effort to make use of this bank every time. Avoid all these, well, they're not big holes yet, but they will be. Stay on this nice smooth bank to give me a better line more progressively around there, because as you'll see, there is a really sharp left-hander there. Another important smooth line spot, instead of going in these huge braking bumps here and getting unsettled, nicely up here on those tyre tracks, the bike will feel far more stable and you'll feel more settled going around the next turn. So practice is all finished, going up for quali now. Pretty nervous because there's a big field, so it's going to be really interesting to see how fast everybody's going and see where I am in the mix. Just going to visualise the track now and then head up and do the quali run. Track visualisation is something that I find really valuable. I'm talking everything from braking points to pedal strokes, entry points into corners. I'll try and do this a number of times throughout the race weekend to make sure my lines are just right there, right in my head. Whew. All good. So the qualifying runs at the IXS were really late. I don't think I came down until after 6 o'clock in the evening. I'd made a bit of an error with my goggle choice and I still had a semi-tinted lens on, so it was really dark for me at the bottom section in the woods. As a result, I was 16th at the top split, but then lost time at the bottom and ended up 32nd. It ended up being a really late night for me because one of my frame bearings had worn out, so we had to rig the lights up in the tent at about 8 o'clock, strip the frame out, replace the bearing and make sure the bike was alright, ready for the next day. So I don't think we had dinner until about 9:30, which wasn't ideal going into race day. So we're here in Maribor, Slovenia, eastern side of Europe for World Cup Round 1 of the 2019 season. It's really cool for me to come back here. I did my first World Cup here 10 years ago, so I'm really excited to race the track again after all this time. So here we are, it's World Cup week. Setup's moved right next door to my suspension sponsor, Suntour. So I work with Kevin on the suspension and he does me custom cartridges for the forks. The reason for that is so that he can make the way the rebound and the way the compression works specific to what I need it for. I want the fork to be really, really supple and sensitive at the start, but then I need it to ramp up if I get something wrong or have a hard impact. Excuse me, you just ruined my video with your noise. You're coming! Oh, get out of here! Just in case anyone's wondering what goes on setup day, number board's about to go on, bike's ready, cutting some tyres down, Schwalbe Dirty Dan's because we're expecting rain. Been on my turbo for a little bit, it's just about to go back in the van. As you can see, not that tidy, but what can I say, best I can do. Nothing worse than having an expensive nice bike and your number board looking like a dog's dinner. Get yourself onto rock guards and get yourself one of these bad boys. So this track is a rider favourite. It's got lots of challenging components to it. It's got really kind of muddy, rooty sections in the trees, and especially if the weather turns and it rains, it's going to get really technical trying to pick lines through the roots and stay, keep the bike upright when you're slipping around. It's got this big rock garden about a third of the way down, which is really challenging. It's got a few different line options, big boulders to get through, and then in other sections the track is just really, really fast and you're just going to be hammering through compressions, through the trees. So yeah, it's a really cool track with loads of different aspects to it, loads of different components to challenge the rider. So everybody's really excited to get on track tomorrow. Bye. On a sick first day of practice, time practice went well. Despite a big crash, managed to do a good time and come 22nd, so I'm pleased with that. Oh my fucking god. Everyone's going home for dinner, Kevin's packing up. But because Chad's gone to Canada, I'm going to be grafting for a couple of hours, maybe not that long, maybe an hour. Put some fresher tyres on my practice wheels for tomorrow morning. Need to change the rear neck because that one's bent. And just generally make sure the bike's running good for tomorrow. Conditions were pretty wild today for qualifying. It rained about 20 minutes, 30 minutes before we set off. Was loose. It was a bit of a guessing game. Carnage. We still had dry tyres on. I had to borrow a mudguard. You didn't really know what was dry, what was wet, so I managed to keep my head, kept the bike upright. I've ended up 57th, which is just inside.
I'm the mechanic of Jack Redding. My name is Raphael. Jack Redding, he big time dickhead, yeah? I work for him and he always nasty to me. We go off riding his bike, he bring it back dirty and I have to wash it. It's a fucking joke. He pay me nothing. We have this Chad Boxall guy before and he said Jack Redding is nice. Hopefully I kill all of his bearings. He go walk track, leave me here clean bike, is a fucking joke.
So I gave it absolutely everything in my race run, really went for it. I had a really good top section and was sitting 16th at the first split. I had a little wobble on the way to the second, dropped back to 34th. Third sector was good, sat 31st at that split, and then I had a huge moment, nearly come off the bike, was fully sideways, basically stopped saving it. I'm not quite sure how I didn't crash. So that dropped me back to 50th at the fourth split, and from there I'd kind of lost the fire and just nursed it to the bottom, so ended up finishing 50th. I didn't leave Maribor with the result I was after, but my split times proved that the speed's there. Thanks for watching episode 2, I hope you've enjoyed it. In episode 3 I'll travel to Madeira for my first crack at the 2019 World Enduro Series.
Una baguette. Oui? No?
Rolling.
So conditions were pretty wild. Keep it down back there, Bruce.
Bond, James Bond.